Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Shareholders Annual General Meeting. It's June 8th. I'm Deputy Mayor Kretsch. Happy Pride Month to everyone, and happy National Indigenous History Month to everybody as well. It's my first time being Deputy Mayor, so I want to make sure I said those things to acknowledge that we're here and these things are real. I want to say that Councillor for Ward 6, Tom Jackson, Councillor for Ward 4, Tammy Huang, Councillor for Ward 5, Matt Francis, Councillor for Ward 9, Brad Clark, Councillor for Ward 12, Craig Kassar, and Councillor for Ward 15, Ted McMeekin are all in the chamber. And joining us remotely, Mayor Andrew Horvath, Councillors for Ward 14, Mike Spadafora, Ward 13, Alex Wilson, Ward 1, Maureen Wilson, and Ward 8, Esther Pauls. So welcome to the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation shareholder meeting of June 8th. Quorum is present. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I see now that Councillor Esther Pauls has joined us from Ward 7, not Ward 8. Well, I mean, it's next door. These numbers are very similar. I don't see Councillor Danko, so as far as I'm concerned, you're in charge of both wards. A reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meetings, and that means loud vibrations too. We'll go to item number 1, which is the approval of the agenda. Clerk McRae, are there any changes to today's agenda?
No, Deputy Mayor, there are no changes to the agenda.
Awesome. Can I have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as presented? See Councillor Huang, seconded by Councillor Kassar. Any discussion on today's agenda? Not seeing any hands darting into the air. We'll go to the vote. I see Councillor Jackson's in the affirmative. Councillor McMeekin's in the affirmative. Councillor Nan, your mic is on. Councillor Pauls, are you in the affirmative? Councillor Pauls is in the affirmative. And that motion carries 13-0. Now we're on to the second item on our agenda, item number 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Seeing none, we'll carry on to item 3, which is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. And so we'll need someone who was at the previous meeting to move it. That would probably be Councillor Jackson, Councillor Clark. No?
Councillor Clark. Sorry, through the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Maureen Wilson, Councillor Nan, Pauls, and Councillor Clark were all in attendance at that meeting.
All right, which one he's putting your head? There goes Councillor Nan. So Councillor Nan is moving. Who will second? Councillor Huang. Is there any discussion on these minutes? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Councillor Pauls is in favor. And that motion carries 13-0 as well. Now we're on to item 4, communications. The first correspondence item here from the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation respecting the Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Executive Overview. Can I have a mover and seconder on the communications items? Councillor Kassar, seconded by Councillor Pauls. Any discussion on the communication item? Not seeing any, we'll vote. Councillor Dank, are you in favor or are you voting electronically of the communication items being received? And Councillor Danko from Ward 8 is joining us online now. Sorry, Councillor Pauls, your reign over Ward 8 is ended.
I was enjoying doing the work.
And that's carried 14-0. We're now on to presentations, which is the bulk of the reason why we're here. Item 5.1, the 2023 Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation Annual General Meeting. I'd like to call upon Jeffrey Cowan, President and CEO of HACO, and Laurie Tugman, the Chairman of the Board of HACO, to provide the presentation of items 5.1. At the end, we'll ask questions of the presenters, and we'll receive the presentation at that time. Take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you. And through the Deputy Mayor, I would like to thank the Deputy Mayor, Madam Mayor, and members of Council for having us today. I'm just going to make a few brief comments before I turn it over to Jeff Cowan, our CEO. Starting with, I'd like to recognize the directors of Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation, that being Greg McCannis, Julia Camula, Elizabeth Donato, Tony Toma, Councillor Tammy Wang, Krista Wessel, and we've got Anna Venestra, who is being nominated today. I'd also like to just say a few words about Krista, because this is her last month as a director after 9 years. Most of that time, she has served as chair of her HR and Governance Committee. She has been through lots of changes over her term as director, including the creation of Electra and the actual creation of Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation. I'm certainly, and as well as change in CEO as well. So we thank her for her guidance, her wisdom, and we will definitely miss her from the board. If we could just have the next slide, which I'll let you. Thanks, Jeff. I just want to, so we're dealing today with HACO, which of course is 100% owned by the City of Hamilton, and it was created as a result of the Electra merger. I'm going to let Jeff go into a little bit more detail on that, but you'll see that we operate as Hamilton Community Enterprises, and there's a non-regulated energy component to that business, as well as telecom. And at the time that the Electra merger happened, these were assets that did not fit with the merger, and telecom being a very good example of that. And so it was, HACO was created, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff from there. Thank you.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Deputy Mayor, Madam Mayor, and members of Council. I became the CEO at the beginning of the pandemic, and this is the first time actually having the opportunity to have so many faces as I talk about the performance of the corporation and this year's AGM. So it's a nice change. As Laurie had mentioned, Hamilton Enterprise Holding Corporation exists to within it are the operating entities of Hamilton Enterprises, Hamilton Community Enterprises Energy, and Hamilton Community Enterprises Telecom. Hamilton Community Energy was formed back in 2002, and from its founding was principally always in the mandate of decarbonization. It was founded with the implementation of the downtown district energy system, which is located at 79 Bay. And it was a natural gas-based system. And at the time, natural gas was a green alternative to electricity at that point, which was predominantly being generated through coal at the time. And subsequently, HC Energy has grown to incorporate other renewables and sources of green technology into its portfolio, including technology such as geothermal, solar through solar voltaic, as well as we believe in the principle of energy harvesting. And simply, a concept of energy harvesting is you don't actually cool a space. What you actually do is you remove that heat. And in removing the heat, you can use that for other purposes, such as heating space. There's applications in agriculture. There are other applications such as carbon sequestration, which you can use for other purposes. And so we really take this view as not to let any joule of energy go to waste. And it's in the founding principles of our energy business. And great opportunities within Hamilton, which we'll discuss later on. Oh, sorry. In 2015, HC was in Telecom was incorporated, and it started with a proof of concept that was driven through City IT at the time towards building fiber optics within downtown Hamilton to connect many of the municipal buildings. Historically, there had been another fiber entity within Hamilton. It was called Fiberwired Hamilton, that existed within the hydro utility at that time, and it was quite successful. Ultimately, it had been acquired, and there was a view that, fast forward, that something was lost. There was a bit of customer experience, there was focusing on the community, and the city had thought at that time that there could be benefit into looking to reestablish what was the success of that telecommunication entity. And that was the founding of HCE Telecom. Since then, HCE Telecom's grown to service broadly what we refer to as the MUSH sector. So that's education, healthcare, essential services, government services, as well as enterprise business across the Greater Toronto Hamilton area. And there's a really interesting intersection between the energy business and the telecommunication business in that seen going forward is one of the principal pathways towards decarbonization will be the introduction of a lot new sources of energy production and how consumers consume that energy. And what that's going to require is a lot more intelligence. It's going to require what we refer to as mass digitization. As far as you generate and as far as you consume, and how do things actually synchronize and operate together reliably, sustainably, and securely. And HCE is very well positioned to be a leader in that transformation that we are going to see as far as these pathways to decarbonize. Here's a brief snapshot of some of our clients. So back in 2015, when I would have started at HCE, we were seven clients in total. And subsequently, now as we work into 2023, we're over 220 clients strong and growing, with many recognizable and very meaningful organizations within Hamilton. Organizations that really play a succinct role in making Hamilton that best place to raise a family and age successfully. And we've played a lot of roles to try and bring innovation and to try and do good in this community. But the capabilities that originated within Hamilton have also grown beyond, and we have the ability to service and take our brand national. And as an example, last year we happened to secure an opportunity to deliver internet and a network to BDO Canada, and it just goes to show you the sophistication and the scale of the capabilities, the assets and investments that we've made in the organization. And that also exists on our energy services side. While the principles of growing decarbonized energy strategies originated in Hamilton, we practice the bulk of our craft in Hamilton, but we've also had the ability to take and look beyond in the region in introducing renewable technologies and services across the area. Principally grounded in our mission and vision is the idea and our belief that climate change and digital transformation are really driving unprecedented changes in communities. And with those changes come some challenges, but they also breed a lot of opportunities as well. And at HCE, we wake up every day thinking about how do we differentiate Hamilton? How do we apply the capabilities, our assets that we have to help transform this community? How do we help this community compete broadly across other municipalities that are looking to encourage investment in driving best-of-breed talent into the organization? And it's around this mission of how do we help the municipality best equipped with this transformation that's happening, which is really what has grounded into our mission and our vision statement. From there, we take an approach where we look towards maximizing the concept of how we generate shareholder value. And it's really grounded in this concept of a triple bottom line approach, which is based on generating an economic return, a social return, and an environmental return. And it's really this triple bottom line approach that really influences our corporate strategy and the investments that we make and the solutions that we deliver. And it's very much driven by the strategic priorities of the city, of the shareholder, and a lot of the vision and the innovative ideas that we get more broadly across from city staff and other significant members and leaders within the community. Looking briefly from a shareholder value on the economics, HCE has a solid track record of growth, both on top line revenue and on EBITDA, and certainly relative to our industry peers. We like to take this idea of innovating local, and this is where there's a really interesting opportunity where if we can solve a problem locally in Hamilton, if there's something that we're able to do uniquely for Hamiltonians, for businesses, for the city, then we want to solve the problem within Hamilton and then have the idea of then operationalizing that and then taking it afield to commercialize it as a source of growth to the organization, and that recipe has worked quite well. One of the items also that's quite important, where a lot of the founding clients connected to the downtown district energy system, the central utility plant, were initially a lot of city-owned entities. But as the organization has grown, you can see about our sources of revenue and how diversified the organization has become, where the majority of revenues that the organization generate actually are originating from non-city generated activity, which I think goes to show to strength into the businesses and the meaningfulness of the products that we provide in the community. And then to note, through this activity over the last 5 years, is that we have reinvested north of $7 million back into Hamilton, into assets that are supporting the local economy, supporting the decarbonization, and really with the principle of trying to make internet and access to city services more accessible. Looking towards social and taking on that theme of making services more accessible. This is a visualization of, we provided connectivity to the city's COVID hotline, dial tone. And it's amazing to think that since that we've provided that, there's been over 880,000 completed calls made to the city's COVID hotline. And then a little bit of a visualization about where some of those calls had originated from. Our organization, with our expertise and our capability, we're able to deliver this within weeks, not months, and working very closely with city staff at the time. And that's just an example of the capabilities that we have in the organization. And then we've and subsequently have looked to provide our capabilities in expanding municipal Wi-Fi, which has existed within city premises for quite some time, arenas, library locations and whatnot, but how do we expand that to outdoor and public areas? And how do you do it in a reliable, secure, and a sustainable fashion? And working closely with the city, we have been able to take that essence and expand it to 9 locations today. But we have the ability, and we foresee there is the capability to take that and expand it to over 300 possible locations going forward in the years to come. On the environmental side, one of the passions of HCE, founding back to our experience in energy, is really around thermal energy. And from that, we look at a pathway to decarbonization and achieving net zero, and wanting to be the leaders in decarbonizing building heating. And it's amazing to think that buildings actually represent the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions inside of our community. And the industrials are the largest in Hamilton. Other communities that don't have such a large industrial presence that are urban, you'll find that buildings are actually the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions. Predominantly that's the heating, and that's because it's dependent predominantly on natural gas, on fossil fuels. And we believe taking our expertise and looking forward is that we have a unique position to help lead that that change in decarbonizing the community through focusing on buildings. And from that perspective, you'll see that at our heart in participating in other initiatives such as the Decarbonization Hub. We were a strong supporter and contributor into the Community Energy and Emissions Plan, the Climate Change Action Plan, and we have a view into our role in that we foresee over the next 10 years the ability to reduce 26,000 tons annually of CO2 emissions in this community just by focusing on new development, mixed-use residential and industrial, and that's quite significant. And these are actions and strategies that we're seeing taking hold sufficiently in a lot of other neighboring communities and a lot of other jurisdictions across North America, and we really see an amazing opportunity here in Hamilton to take that going forward. And when I was talking about the unique intersection between our data, our telecommunication business, and our energy business, we are about to embark on a plan to take a look at further decarbonizing the downtown district energy system. And we have a view that we can eliminate approximately 2,000 tons of CO2 a year, roughly about 20% of the carbon emissions of that platform, by looking at digitization of the buildings, by looking at demand-side optimization of the buildings. And that doesn't require big investments into cladding or windows or other very challenging elements of a retrofit. It's about looking at optimizing how efficiently a building is actually operated. And to that point in time, that is a perfect example of the meld of the two organizations that we have. We really believe avenue to explore is around the idea, as I just described, conserve and optimize upfront as much as you can to try and lower your energy intensity. Then the next stage after that, you've achieved that level of optimization, and then you look to convert. And then you look to actually convert to a lower carbon source of heating technology, such as the use of heat pumps, such as the use of geothermal, such as the use of district energy type solutions, energy harvesting solutions. And then in the long term, what you wish to do is you wish to connect them onto a network, right? Very much like what had began with the district energy system in downtown Hamilton. Because what you get with a network is you start to get the economies of scale now. You start to get the efficient use and delivery of heating energy throughout the community. And our systems in North America and Canada are relatively small and confined. We look at a system today in Hamilton that has roughly about 3 million square feet today that encompasses approximately 2.5 kilometers within the downtown core. I've met colleagues in Korea that have a system that connects over 1 million individual residences that span 1,000 kilometers across the country. There are parts in the Middle East that they're connecting 65 million square feet of net new load onto district energy technologies on an annual basis. It is something that it's a global trend. It's what people are seeing as a pathway to decarbonize, and there are capabilities in this community going back 22 years that are experts at delivering these solutions, and it's a matter of trying to maximize that opportunity as we go forward. As we take a look to the concept of generating shareholder value through a triple bottom line approach, it's important to communicate in that how well that we tie back and align to the strategic priorities of the City of Hamilton, and that is grounded into how we develop our strategy, how we develop our products, and how we actually look at solutioning within the community. And we have great relationships across many city divisions in playing an active role in the establishment of Recharge Hamilton, the Climate Change Office, and it's been great to see a lot of collaboration and meaningful engagements between ourselves and various leaders within the city itself. Some notable highlights for 2022. And first off, I really like to acknowledge the HCE staff and really express my appreciation towards their hard work and their continued commitments towards executing, not just through 2022, over the course of the pandemic. We deliver mission critical services and solutions. We are supporting, the launching of air ambulances. We carry broadcast connectivity that millions of Canadians see. We heat and cool millions of square feet of downtown Hamilton. The shareholder looks at us to make sure that we reliably operate solutions that help manage costs of the city, energy costs of the city. And we've had to do this to a very high degree of care. There are very strict service levels towards the services that we provide across the community. And, I really like to express the appreciation to the organization to make sure that as we were dealing through these periods of uncertainty, and now as we're starting to vector it out and getting ahead of this transformation at a pace that we hadn't seen before, it's really enabled through their dedication and support. There was, while the organization had done well through the pandemic, the impacts, brought on by timing delays, being able to deliver new services, contract new revenue. There was some impacts into the organization, but overall the organization was able to sustain growth in 2022. And just some notable highlights that we had talked about is in 2022 was a year that we put a focus into our ability to take our fiber assets, our capability of delivering internet services, and we were able to work in a creative and innovative fashion with community housing Hamilton. And we were able to bring our fiber optics into 5 community housing Hamilton properties within the course of 2022. That's connecting over 1,000 residents today. These are examples back to the social return, where it's our ability to do meaningful things to people that are actually surpass just profit as a sole motivator. And we think that's a very important part as we've built these assets in the business. The business are utility scale type investments. They have lifespan, and they have the ability to provide benefit to the community for a very, very long period of time. And while there could have been initially commercial constructs on how we deployed the assets, now it's our opportunity to figure out, okay, well, what other greater benefit, where are there opportunities of greater purpose to look at leveraging and deploying these? And that's one example, as well as extending Wi-Fi out to outdoor spaces in the community. Hamilton provides an excellent Wi-Fi experience inside city facilities. I'm a hockey dad. I'm in just about in every single hockey arena in the community, in the whole area. And if you ever need to connect on to a municipally provided Wi-Fi service, and you ever do a speed test, if you do a speed test in the city of Hamilton, the quality of the offering is just absolutely fantastic in comparison to some of the neighboring jurisdictions. I won't mention some of the neighboring jurisdictions. And the principle here is how do we take this offering that the city is providing to its constituents, and how do we make it more broadly available, and how do we make it available in spaces that historically hasn't been? And that was one of the founding concepts and principles, working with the Chief Digital Officer in expanding this capability into outdoor spaces. And then one activity that we're very proud of in the organization is taking a lead role in being the initiator towards what we're referring to as Hamilton's energy harvesting feasibility study. And there'll be a more detailed slide on this coming forward. But we had raised $500,000 worth of funding to do a study, a feasibility study, really grounded into the economic viability and the technical viability of tapping into what is in Niagara Falls worth of thermal energy that's just being emitted into the atmosphere down on the industrial bayfront. And that type of heat energy, we call it residual, because it doesn't really serve any useful purpose as far as generating electricity from it or them capturing it and feeding it back into an industrial process. Those would be very, very high temperatures, okay? This is a type of temperature between 30 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius that from an industrial process perspective is really almost like it's a waste. And it's just being emitted into the atmosphere. But what that energy is absolutely fantastic for is fantastic for building heating. And it's fantastic for agriculture, and it's fantastic for other technologies like carbon sequestration. And so what we're looking towards initiating is through this study is to do a viability analysis. And well, how can we harness this? How can we harness this Niagara Falls of thermal energy and use it as a fuel source to decarbonize building heating? Not just in Hamilton alone. There is so much heat that's emitted from the industrial bayfront that Hamilton can only ever use but just a fraction of it. Then the question becomes is, okay, well, to maximize the utility, where is there the opportunity to take this energy more broadly across the region? And we're starting to dub it now Canada's thermal corridor. And the nice thing about this initiative is that it also carries circular economy type principles to it, where you're taking, as they green the input and they look at alternative energy sources into the input, the process is always hot, and so there's always going to be that heat to harness, and to harness that, then to try and again use it to reduce waste, to encourage economic development and growth in the community. We think it's very, very strategic. It actually was a principle that was mentioned back in early 2000s with the founding of the downtown district energy system. But what we need to harness it to the maximum capability is scale. And this is where we're really looking forward towards trying to get in front of as much development as we can to come on to these principles of low carbon, high efficiency heating, so that they can be target candidates to bring this industrial residual heat to. And then one other activity that we got engaged with that was quite exciting was field trials with the public safety broadband network. And that's something that has been led by some neighboring police services out in Halton, taking a look to municipalities' capability to deploy their own infrastructure for the purposes of public safety services delivery. And so we were able to help play a role bringing fiber optics to help underpin this. We had done it on free of charge, as it was just a trial. We had assets deployed and in place, and I believe that the outcome of that was a very successful field trial. The interesting thing and why I mentioned public safety, it's very unique, is that the what is deemed as public safety has expanded over the years. It could be things like digital signage. It could be things like automation in the community when it comes to things like traffic. It could become to energy management solutions into the grid, taking a look at things like resiliency, taking a look at reliability. Public space safety also can encompass elements of rural broadband and actually delivering internet access in rural parts of the community. But what public safety broadband means and where it's unique to a municipality is it's done on cellular spectrum. It's done on a wireless spectrum that you know, the large incumbent carriers would end up using. And what that allows is it allows the economies of scale to deliver something uniformly across a broad territory. It really represents the next broadband beachhead, I view, for a lot of municipalities as they have the mechanisms to go to Industry Canada and actually make an application for this spectrum. And so there are some great activities that Hamilton's engaged more broadly with inside of this public safety broadband consortium, and HCE is a member of that consortium, seeing where there's opportunities to drive innovation into this community. More is going to be coming on this shortly, press release about the energy harvesting initiative. It's a year-long study that we're launching. I had spoke to it just earlier around the economic viability to leverage that residual heat down on the bayfront. We've had many significant partners come on board. Arsler, the Hamilton-Oshawa Port Authority, Slate, you know, participation from others like Air Liquide, Mohawk, McMaster, and other notable entities. There's a lot of excitement towards this initiative in the community, and there's a lot more excitement growing. It was the second stage of something that was initially founded by the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce when they did their heat study report back in 2019, I believe it was launched, and we were so passionate about it that then we took the reins. We didn't want it to die on the vine and just be another study that was done. And we really do believe that it represents a very unique and strategic opportunity in the community of Hamilton. And this is why HCE, founding in our principles of wanting to decarbonize building heating, our expertise that we have in building out thermal networks, our expertise that we have in building out digital networks, is we thought it was very strategic for us to carry this torch and lead the second phase of this study. You know, it's amazing to think that there is the potential to harness 80,000 homes worth of carbon-free heating out of that industrial bayfront is just absolutely incredible. And so there'll be more to come on this, and there will be a great digital presence, a website, a social media campaign where everybody will be able to follow on the progress of the study as it progresses over the next year. So really just in summary, we talked about our vision, and we really are looking towards the ability to maximize the whole effective benefit that HCE brings to the shareholder, brings to the community, the constituents, and businesses. We really believe it is climate change, and we believe that it's this increased rate of digitization and transformation that presents a very unique opportunity for our organization to be a leader and to really help Hamilton along the pathway to achieve its net zero targets and to achieve its strategic priorities, and really look towards the continued engagement and support that we've had broadly across the community. And with that, I can open it up to questions.
Thank you. And I have a speaker's list of questions. First, Councillor Clark, then Councillor Huang, Councillor Ted McMeekin, and then followed by me. I've already got your microphone on. Councillor Clark, go for it.
Oh, thank you very much. Just a quick comment and then a question. I'm very pleased with everything that the organization is doing, and I do want to thank you for sharing the CVs, the resumes of your potential directors with us, given that we have to finalize that decision. The one question I have, in the document that you sent to us, 4.1, it says, a unanimous shareholders declaration governs the activities of HETCO and its subsidiary companies. When I'm reading that, it seems to me that the shareholders have to all agree, so the council, or am I misinterpreting that?
Jeff, let me just, through the Deputy Mayor, let me put that in the context of the legal entity. The directors obviously have the responsibility for governing the entity, except for what the shareholder reserves for themselves. And that's what that document does, is it basically says that the director, some public company would have basically all of the reliance on the directors to govern the activities of the entity. In this case, because there's a single shareholder, as in the City of Hamilton, you have reserved the right to make certain decisions at council, or the city would make those decisions. So that document simply sets out what we have the authority to do and what authority the city has reserved for themselves. Does that answer the question?
It does, and I was of the opinion that that's what it was doing, but it doesn't say that. It kind of sounds like the shareholders are governing the organization, and that's not what's happening.
That is.
We are the policy people, and we have certain things that we have to approve, but your directors and your staff are the ones that are really governing the activities of the organization. Is that not the case?
That is correct. We have the responsibility for anything that is not, the directors have the responsibility for anything that is not in that shareholder's direction. So basically you've reserved certain specific things, everything else would fall to the directors, who then in turn do the same thing with management, which basically says to management, you have the authority to run the business on a day-to-day basis, except you've got to bring certain things back to us. The best example of that would be is if there's a capital expenditure above a certain level, that's got to come to the board for approval.
Yes. So the unanimous shareholders declaration, is that in any of the documents that we received today?
It wasn't in the documents provided today. It is available through the city website and resources. It's publicly made.
Jeff, you should come to the other microphone.
Sorry.
It's publicly made available through the City of Hamilton online resources, but it was not included in the material today.
So just a suggestion, when you do your next annual round, perhaps including it as an appendix, because that statement there could be interpreted different ways by the public. So just a suggestion. But continue to do the good work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Deputy
Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, thanks for that question. It is an important clarification.
Thanks very much. And next up on the speakers list is Councillor Huang, followed by Councillor McMeekin, Councillor Kassar, and then myself. Take it away, Councillor Huang.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I also appreciate the automatic microphone activation from the big seat over there. Thank you. Thank you, CEO Cowan and Chairman Tugman. I do really want to ask a couple of clarifying questions, and I hope that to the rest of my colleagues, you'll provide a little bit of that indulgence. When we speak about rural broadband, is that in any type of future strategic direction, given the expertise that HCE Telecom currently has?
Through the chair. So over our tenure, we've assessed many programs, many provincial programs and many federal programs, and their applicability in the community to expand fiber and wireless capability in rural areas. And through those programs, we were not able to come up with the construct where it became viable for HCE to pursue those programs. This is why we mentioned inside of this shareholders meeting around the potential to look at other approaches such as the mechanisms the municipality has as it relates to public safety broadband as a possible approach to achieve that.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into the public safety broadband network. Given that you have just identified this as a possible avenue, what does that look like, and how much would this cost to the municipality, or is that something that we have direct access to today? Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair, that level of analysis at this point in time hasn't been completed. That would be a good next step to do that type of assessment. The reason why that could be seen as a credible approach is it's a technology and it's a platform that provides consistency over a large area to be able to do something as opposed to other approaches that are very micro segmented and unique, and that analysis hasn't been done at scale in Hamilton that I know of as of yet.
So perhaps as follow-up questions through you, Deputy Mayor, the public service broadband network, as I understand it, is essentially part of the wireless spectrum. It is potentially part of the spectrum where we as a municipality have direct access to. Is that correct? I hope you could just elaborate a little bit more as to what this is, just so that my council colleagues can get a better sense of that.
Through the chair, Industry Canada, or ISED, provides accommodations to municipalities, specifically for the purposes of essential services, access to wireless spectrum, licensed spectrum, which means it can be used to deliver a higher quality and a higher reliability and a higher security level of services than you would see off of, something like Wi-Fi or some open license type. And so that is something that is available to municipalities.
Thank you. Switching tacks a little bit, through you, Deputy Mayor, what are you doing for Victoria Park Community Homes? I do note that one of your slides says over 1,000 units in community housing, which is very vague considering you haven't actually spoken about which organizations you're actually working with. But for an organization like Victoria Park Community Homes, what are some of the applications of your technology?
Through the chair, so more specifically to what was referred to in the presentations regarding community housing Hamilton, more specifically for where we had deployed our fiber asset today. With Community Park, with Victoria Park Community Homes, today we have been a thermal energy provider to them since the early 2000s, and we're actively engaged with them as they're exploring the opportunities to build more socially affordable housing across the community, about where we could take a look at low carbon energy and delivering innovative data solutions and other developments in the community.
Do we still have some time?
Yeah, you have time.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for saying that, CEO Cowan. I'd like to understand a little bit better on what is the opportunity and the possibility of deploying more district energy solutions across affordable housing, specifically when we have districts that are clumped together. We have new housing that is coming online. We also have an opportunity for more built infrastructure in terms of affordable housing. What does that engagement look like to enable district energy into new sort of communities that we might be looking at investments in?
Through the chair, so we've expanded our approach when it comes to our overarching principle now is taking a look at delivering low carbon, high efficiency technologies. And district systems, like what is in downtown Hamilton, is one approach, but it's just a technology. And where there sometimes are challenges is there's a large upfront capital cost to consistently connect out that pipe, let's say. But in saying that, there's a lot of advancements now in other technologies where you can achieve the same outcome and goal and have a strategy now that can be uniformly applied across the entirety of the community and not just isolated into the downtown core. And so that's a shift, and it's an evolution in our strategy now in and around wanting to decarbonize building heating in the community. And so what that means is that we want to take a look at the best approaches and the best technologies to achieve that. And so what that means is geothermal. The use of heat pumps, as an example, is something that is a very well-proven approach to achieve that. And that can happen uniformly now across an entire geography. So you don't have to be so micro-segmented and so isolated now. And so it could be through the use of geothermal and ground source heat pumps. There's the electrification. There's the implementations of cold climate air source heat pumps. There are variable rate flow type systems and technologies. And we have a lot of experience over our tenure in operating these type of systems. And so how we can maximize our benefit to where there's the opportunities to develop low carbon solutions for sustainable or social housing, or where campuses or campuses are being built, is looking at applying those type of principles if something innovative is happening in any ward across the community, and not just being isolated specifically to the 2.5 kilometers of existing piping that we had in the downtown. And so that's a bit of an evolution that we've had in the energy business over the last 12 months.
Wonderful. My last question is around the decarbonization hub, and how are you bringing your expertise and your technology to that essentially going to be a center of excellence? So how are you contributing to that despite being a founding member?
Through the chair, so through being a founding member, through raising the funds to conduct the study and bring the experts that would be required to do a lot of the technical and economic analysis. For over a decade, we've been actively engaged in some very constructive thought leadership occurring in Hamilton, whether it's occurring at McMaster University or Mohawk colleges, in and around these concepts of energy harvesting and energy sharing. And through the systems that we've operated at McMaster Innovation Park over the last decade or so, and the unique opportunities that we have in downtown Hamilton, there being a central cooling plant, there being arenas, there being libraries and art galleries, is that we always became very interested in this research, and we developed a lot of expertise, and where we had the ability to apply some of it in our operations. And so when it came to the chamber and the relationships we had with the chamber in that study, we thought it being very strategic and to our organization and to the community as well too, just given how Hamilton is uniquely positioned. And as I mentioned earlier, is you know, our DNA is in trying to innovate in Hamilton, and the industrial bayfront is a very key and important part of this community. Is that we thought it was very strategic in the long term to look at it as a decarbonization source in and around this part of Hamilton. And then as we started to dig more into it, we realized that there's so much energy being emitted that not only could it help decarbonize areas of Hamilton, but also the surrounding areas. And so that's so really in our role, we're helping drive, and we're helping keeping the motivation and the cadence going. And through our efforts and our constructs, in that, you know, we do have in that commercial part of the organization, we have the sophistication of what we do from a marketing side. We have the sophistication about what we do from a client engagement kind of perspective. There is credibility that we bring in the community over the years because of the things that we have done. It helps us immobilize support differently than other entities. And so that's why we thought it was very strategic for us to play this role.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, I do have one more question. So how does this council and how does this shareholder group support you as you continue to build out all of the activities of HACO? Through you, Deputy Mayor.
Through the chair. You know, it's really fulfilling a lot of the vision that I think in some of the groundwork that's been laid in, through Recharge Hamilton, through the Community Energy and Emissions Plan. I think it's a lot of collaboration still. I think it's open dialogues and finding opportunities to collaborate where the public and the private can work together towards a greater outcome, and trying to nurture those type of opportunities. As well too is the municipality themselves, the city themselves has some unique opportunity that you can use to innovate through, and then those innovations, you know, may happen initially because we want to take a look at how do we, you know, decarbonize a city facility. Well, the decarbonization of the city facility could be an opportunity that then could have broader benefit in and across the community. And I think we've had great relationships to help look at that, innovate, operate, and then grow kind of model on that front. So if we can continue down that path, that's very supportive.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, I think that we have a significant amount of expertise and talent that is really located within HACO and its subsidiaries. I think that there's a real opportunity for us as we talk about our strategic goals and directions that we should be leveraging HACO some more, and seeing that we should be putting it out there so that as Hamilton is looking at a green economy and becoming a sort of a star attraction of decarbonization, this is where we should be holding up HACO as one of those shining jewels. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Huang. I just wanted to say that Councillor for Ward 11, Mark Taddison, joined us a while ago, and I forgot to say so. Is there virtually? Next on the speakers list is Councillor Ted McMeekin, followed by Councillor Kassar, and then myself. Councillor McMeekin.
Yes, thanks. Nothing too heavy or deep from me, but I just want to say thanks for the innovation, the leadership, the thought leadership that you're providing, and it's really important. And I'm comforted to know that you're on the cutting edge on so many fronts. The only it's not so much a concern, it's just maybe a question, might even be a in passing piece of advice. you know, we're fortunate to be able to hear your report and read the stuff. Fascinating to go through the material, just to find myself making notes here, just what needs to be communicated to our constituents. And I wonder what kinds of initiatives might you take to best inform and even market the fact that you're on the cutting edge, you are innovative. We are talking about dramatic carbon reductions. I mean, Lord knows today, probably more than ever, climate change. I'm wearing a mask for the first time in a long time just because I can smell the smoke everywhere I go. We need to be on top of that. You're on top of it every day, right? I'm not on top of it every day. I've got 87 emails to respond to and phone calls and 50th anniversary parties to attend and all that sort of stuff. You're on it every day, and I'd really like to see some visible sharing of the kinds of things you're doing. Can you comment on that? Any plans you might have to market yourselves more effectively?
Through the chair, that's a great comment, Councillor, and it's a great point. For many years, I used to joke that we were the best kept secret in the community, and we did go through shortly afterwards the merger some branding activities, in that we didn't really have a strong commercial communication strategy, and it is something that's evolving, and the point is very well taken. And we're looking at other social platforms, looking at things like YouTube, creating little vignette snippets to try and talk about complex concepts and material in more digestible forms, looking at other platforms to try and get the message out. And it's a work in progress for us, and it's certainly something that we continue and have focus on putting more efforts towards, and certainly open to comments and feedbacks on where there could be opportunities to better connect it down more locally across the various wards in the community, and opportunities to do that. But it's a great point, and it's something that we do recognize the need to put more continued efforts towards. And I think social is becoming such a strong construct now in trying to reach people in more real time and more effectively. It's an element of our organization that we continue to develop towards.
HACO is clearly a good news story. Not all of our stories in the city are always good news. So when we have an opportunity to share that good news, particularly when the consequences of doing so would lead to more broader engagement and broader support from the body politic, I think that's really critical. So I appreciate your answer and look forward to seeing where you go with it. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thanks very much for that, Councillor McMeekin. Next on the speakers list is Councillor Kassar, followed by me. Take it away, Councillor Kassar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation, CEO Cowan. You're doing a lot of important and exciting work. I wanted to just draw attention back to slide 8. We are showing the growth rates. One thing that jumped off the page to me is your profit is growing faster than revenue, which is a big accomplishment. From my former life, that was always a target to do. So 18% CAGR over 5 years and 16% revenue growth. So 18% in profit, and then you're forecasting 13% compound annual growth rate in revenue going forward. So I just wanted to drill into that a little bit, and you sort of brushed on this briefly. How are you sustaining that growth rate? It's a phenomenal growth rate. What's the competitive advantage that you're bringing? And I know you touched on that a little bit when Councillor Wang's questions, but if you could just drill in a little bit, please. Thank you.
Through the chair, thank you very much for the question. A couple things is the drivers in the community and where the market and where we see forces in the economy going as a whole. There's far more serious discussions and investments being made in the green energy sector than we would have historically had seen, which certainly is helping to promote a strong funnel growth on that side as we take a look down this path of low carbon and high efficiency energy solutions and opportunities to achieve decarbonization. There's a lot more interest just happening in the marketplace, that in the segments of the market that we engage with on that side. And so that's a great element that's helping to sustain growth going forward. The other side on the telecommunication business is those assets are like platform type of investments. And so the great thing is that you deploy an innovation like the platform that delivered calls to the city's COVID hotline. While we, as an example, recently had deployed those innovations to a large health network in the eastern GTA, or to help another region close by as they were looking at modernizing their contact center. And you don't need sizable net new investments for all that additional opportunity that comes on board, because that platform has that scale to continue growth in perpetuity. And so, and again, the digitization front and the fact that people are looking more and more in towards data and the importance of internet access and connectivity, which is what the grounding part of HC Telecom was. It provides a lot of opportunities in adjacent sectors that we're able to benefit from.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And through you, Deputy Mayor, just a supplemental on that, and that's a very fulsome answer. When you look at the growth, so 13% forecast is impressive. On the energy side of things, specifically, how does your forecasted growth connect to or compare to market growth? Are you growing faster than the market in green energy, or do you have a sense of that?
Through the chair, relative to what we would see as our direct comparators, is that we would show strong growth relative to our direct competitors on that side, which and we would not see our direct competitors, the likes of the Enbridges or the Electras or things along those lines. We'd be talking more about the other non-regulated type energy providers in this space. Our growth has been strong. I think a lot of that is attributed to is that we really have a sense of purpose on where our backyard is, and so we don't go out there trying to be everything to everybody. As we really do go out and believe that we have a purpose. Now, where there's the opportunity to look at neighboring jurisdictions or other areas to apply that, we do, but it's really grounded in the fact is that we have a pretty strong sense of who our addressable market and who we are trying to go after in solution. And I think the brand resonates very strong in and around our community. And so that's been one of the things that has been very advantageous for us.
Okay, thank you for that. Just one other question, Deputy Mayor. On slide 13, you're talking about the study, energy harvesting feasibility study, and you also talked earlier about what's happening in Korea and much more ambitious use and harvesting of energy. So I know there's more to come on that, so I don't want to drill down too much in that, but just at a high level, talk about 80,000 homes potentially with carbon-free heating. Just at a high level, what kind of capital investment would be required, and impact to the community in terms of construction, just at a really high level?
Through the chair, so that's one of the elements we want to get much more specific on through the activities in the study. But as you allude to, they are generational investments. Like you are talking about assets that will provide benefit back to the community for multiple generations. One of the oldest district energy networks in New York City is over 140 years old, as an example. And so, if you think of it in that construct, the upfront capital is high. It is high. You are building basically another form of an energy utility, and it needs to be thought of, and why we want to make sure we do a thorough job in looking at what the economic merits of it is that you need to have long-term commit and vision to see something like that come to fruition. And this is where we believe it's really grounded in showing why there's an economic benefit towards Hamilton, the surrounding area, the province, the country, is because it's that magnitude of scale. You would be in the tens upon tens of millions of dollars, and likely quite even beyond that. But if you take a look at the potential monetization of that, you see it successfully happening all over the world. And the one thing about it is it's not moonshot technology. It's not that, you're trying to, land a person on Mars and trying to create and innovate something that doesn't already exist. These principles and these technologies are well founded and in operation all around the world for generations. It's just in our jurisdiction and in Canada as a whole, you just never really saw them wildly adopted, predominantly because energy had relatively been inexpensive, okay, as opposed to other jurisdictions like Europe that had energy crises and things along those lines, or other jurisdictions that are just growing so fast and have such density and economies of scale that it just naturally made sense. The one thing about heat is it's very low utility. It's only good for one thing or a couple things, which is heating homes, or it can be used for some agricultural purposes. It can be used maybe in some food processing, but it's very purpose type of energy. And so if you look at it in that construct, to use electricity or to use natural gas to heat your home, it's not a good use of electricity. Electricity serves so many purposes out there, right? From healthcare to powering transit to manufacturing to all these other needs. And such large investments are going to be required in generating and distributing electricity, is you'd rather take these loads that have very low utility like heating and you put them on a specific energy infrastructure that is just to deliver that. And the same with the natural gas. Natural gas has a lot of utility to it. There's a lot of energy. It can be used to do a lot of things. Probably heating is not the best use in long term for that. Or if you're going to use it in the most high efficiency means that you possibly can. And that's kind of been the principles globally on why you've seen these very large energy networks that predominantly are purposed to carry thermal energy, heat energy, or cooling as well too, because it makes the best use of the other utilities that exist in communities.
No, thank you very much. That's a really great way to frame that. Those are all my questions.
Thanks, Councillor Kassar. And I have just one question, and for something totally different. I want to talk about the telephony side, or the telephone side of the business. And specifically, you had a slide here. I'll try not to be too technical or boring, but you had a slide here about the COVID hotline. And you said that in that slide there, Toronto had 77,920 calls come in. I was like, Toronto, eh? So I wondered in terms of how you develop those statistics, there's two ways to do it. Destination-based, meaning you have some technology that allows you to understand the origin of those calls, and then when they arrive, where they're coming from. Or if you use a sort of telephony system to do that, looking at area codes, and then looking from there further down the line to determine, okay, based on the area code, based on the branch code, based on the local part of the phone number, we determined that was a Toronto phone number. I ask because many people who have mobile phones don't necessarily change their phone number anymore. So I'm wondering how that data was interpreted so we can better understand the statistics and the results, if you know.
Deputy Mayor, for a very thorough answer, I would get one of my colleagues who's predominantly responsible for the telephony platform to tell you exactly how we register the NPA NXX information. But a more general answer on that is, as HCE, one of the assets that we've deployed in place is a carrier telephone grade voice infrastructure where we route calls to and from the public telephone network. We're connected to the likes of Bell, we're connected to the likes of Rogers and others as far as our ability to provide people phone numbers, the ability for people to maintain their phone number if they've been a business and they've had a fridge magnet for their business for the last 20 years and they wish to come to us, such as the fact that they can keep that, and as well as our ability to take calls that are happening from anywhere in the world and bring them into Hamilton in a two-way fashion. And it's through those links that we have through those other carriers where the origination of this is, where the information is predominantly being generated from. And so it's in those call routing tables, the CDR records as we call them, called detailed records, where we're able to see where the source, the originating information, or not the information, but the origination of the call was coming from. And so that's coming in through a CDR call detailed record, and that call detailed record is associated to the links that we have with the other carriers that we connect them to.
So if I understand your answer, what you're saying is that indeed geographically those phone calls are coming from Toronto. They're not just Toronto numbers. I say that because the Toronto calls into our COVID hotline coming from geographical Toronto are more than altogether the calls that came in from Ancaster, Stony Creek, and Dundas. I think that's just something to think about, right? That information, understanding, people from Toronto calling us to ask questions to our COVID hotline in Hamilton, it's just reflecting on that, right? Reflecting on the way we provide services, how the GTHA actually functions, right? And how, as much as we often think about it in the reverse, that obviously folks in Toronto are dependent upon some of the information that we're providing here in Hamilton. So just I'd flag that little data point. Thank you for your answer. And on that, I see no further speakers on the list. And so at this point, I need a mover and seconder to, oh, sorry, pardon me. Councillor Huang? No, I was going to. Oh, I apologize. So at this point, we need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation. So Councillor Huang is going to move it and seconded by, you can do it if you want. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. To the presenters, just one typo on your screen about the Frank A. Cook terminal. Cook is with an E on the end, please. Thank you so much.
Through the chair, thank you very much. My sincere apologies to the Cook family.
So on receiving the presentation, Councillor Huang is the mover. Seconder is Councillor Taddison. And we'll have the electronic vote now. Councillor McMeekin is in favor. Anybody else like to indicate manually? I'm happy to take that verbally here. Councillor Pauls is in favor. Just a moment, and that'll be up on the screen soon. And that carries unsurprisingly 14-0. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the shareholder resolutions. That's item 6.1. The audit consolidated financial statements of Hamilton Enterprises Holding Corporation, year ended December 31st, 2022. Appointment and remuneration of auditor, directors of the corporation, addition of clarifying language to the USD, which we had here on agenda a little while ago. May I please have a mover and seconder to put the shareholder resolutions on the floor? Councillor Clark, Councillor Huang. Any discussion on the resolutions as they are before us? Not seeing anybody on the speakers list, we'll have an electronic vote. Councillor McMeekin's in favor. Anyone else wants to indicate manually? I'm happy to add that to the record verbally. Councillor Pauls, did you have a chance to vote electronically? Councillor Pauls is in favor. Thank you. And that carries 14-0. And we're on to adjournment, but not to go away too soon. We have a meeting immediately following this, so we'll remain in our seats if it's okay in our places. But a motion to adjourn. I see Councillor Pauls. Someone wants to second that. Councillor Huang. We'll have an electronic vote on that. Councillor McMeekin's in favor. Councillor Pauls is in favor. And that carries 14-0. See you again next year. Thanks for being here. And also see you again in like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Yeah.